Before we begin the service, we ask for those who have a cell phone or pager, if you could turn it to the silent mode. Officiating today is Rabbi Arye Hart, Rabbi Tzvi Engel, and Rabbi David Wolkenfeld.
We're here today to show our kavod, to show our deep respect and our love, and to say a final goodbye to Rabbi Melvin Shapiro, Rav Moshe Arye ben Yaakov Meir v'Chaya Sarah. Born in St. Louis in 1924 to Sarah Shapiro and Yaakov Meir, beloved husband of the late Norma, loving father of Susan and Michael, deeply proud grandfather of Gabriel and Sarah, and dear brother of the late Malka Groner. This week's Parsha tells us, Zechor Yemot Olam, remember the days of old. Binu Shnot Dor Vador, understand the years of the past generations. Sha'al Avicha v'yagedcha, Zekenecha v'yomulach. Ask your parents, ask your father, he will tell you. Ask your elders, and they will tell you. The Parsha tells us to ask about the ages past, to look to our elders, to teach us their stories. Our task today and in the weeks, days and weeks and years ahead is to remember and to understand and to tell the many stories of Rabbi Mel Shapiro. The story of losing a father at a young age and coming to Chicago on his own, poor, alone, without a winter coat. The story of Skokie Yeshiva, his community that took him in, and the lifelong friends he made there, and where he won his winter coat at a poker game. The story of his deep erudition and learning, Torah, from the brilliant Rav Regensburg, Rav Fassman, and many others at Skokie Yeshiva. And then on to the University of Chicago, where he did undergraduate and graduate work in education. We tell the story of his lifelong commitment to Torah learning, to tefillah, to shul, to daily minyan, to daf yomi. His commitment to Jewish education, and his founding of Akiba Schechter, and his leadership at Akiba and Ida Crown and Anshe Shalom and Skokie Yeshiva. We tell the story of his deep spiritual vision for an orthodoxy rooted in ethics and compassion, inclusivity, and learning and access for all. We tell the stories of his passion for social justice as he committed to staying on the South Side when everyone else was leaving, committed to integration, committed to civil rights. We tell the story of his passion for Am Yisrael and saving Soviet Jewry. We tell the story of his love for Norma, the star of his life. A passionate, youthful love, all the way to the end. A true union in thought, in love for Am Yisrael and Kol Yoshvei Tevel, for the Jewish people and for all humankind. We tell the stories today of his proud and fierce love for his children and his grandchildren. Zechor Yemot Olam, Binu Shnot Dor Vador, remember these days. Remember the ages past. Sha'al Avicha v'yagedcha, ask your father and he will tell you. Zekenecha v'yomulach, ask your elders and they will teach you. We were blessed to know and to love a man who, even in life, was already becoming a legend. And now as he leaves us, his stories and his legend will only grow. Today, to help us know and understand, we will recite Tehillim and hear words from Rabbi Tzvi Engel, the Mara D'Atra of Congregation Nor Torah, and Rabbi David Wolkenfeld, the Mara D'Atra of his beloved Anshe Shalom, where he was a regular attendee of Minyan, and Rabbi David's Daf Yomi Shir. Followed by these words we'll hear from his children, Michael and Susan. I'm going to move the podium up now so we can be closer, and I want to thank Chicago Jewish Funerals for making it possible for me to officiate from here. And now I invite Rabbi Engel to recite Tehillim.
Ashrei Ha'ish אשר הלך ועצת רשעים, ובדרך החטאים לא עמד, ובמושב ליצים לא ישב. כי אם בתורת אדוני חפצו, ובתורתו יגע יומם ולילה, והיה כעץ שתול על פלגי מים, אשר פריו ייתן בעיתו, ועליהו לא ייבול, וכל אשר יעשה יצליח. לא כן הרשעים כי אם כמוץ אשר תדפנו רוח, על כן לא יקומו רשעים במשפט, וחטאים בעדת צדיקים, כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים, ודרך רשעים תאבד.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני מי יגור באוהליך, מי ישכון בהר קודשך. Rabbi Shapiro was the board chair of our shul for many years and played a pivotal role in guiding the shul through some of its most significant decisions. But at the time I moved to Lakeview, he was no longer front and center in those sorts of leadership roles, but he was our elder statesman, universally loved and universally admired. He could bring arguments to an end by deploying his moral clarity, his gravitas in a simple word. L'ragal al lishono lo asa l'rehu ra'a v'charpa lo nasa al krovo. But the place where Rav Mel presided was our daily Shachrit minyan. He opened the building up in the morning. He settled in his seat with talis and tefillin, often before anyone else arrived, or at least before I arrived, I don't know. He made sure our minyan was a welcoming place for everyone looking for a place to daven, or a mourner who needed to say a Kaddish, or someone observing a yard site. It didn't matter if you were a learned rabbi or an out-of-town visitor who had never been in an Orthodox shul before, but was desperate for a place to say Kaddish for her father. Rav Mel wanted our minyan to be a place where you could encounter God and find the support of a community. Nivzeh beinav nimas v'yet yireh Adonai yechabed nishba lahara v'lo yamir. I believe I've not shared this with anyone at our shul until now, but when the city of Chicago allowed us to reconvene in-person tefillah at the beginning of June, I was very reluctant to move ahead, knowing that some of our older members would not be able to join us. It seemed wrong to me to have this aspect of communal life go back to normal when that would exclude someone like Rav Mel. And since June, I've been hoping for the day when it would be safe for Rav Mel to return to his seat in our shul, and I will miss him in that seat forever. Kaspol Natan, Beneshech, Veshochad, Al Naki lo Lakach, Asa'ela lo Yamot le'olam. Rav Mel inspired us in our shul to begin learning Daf Yomi following Shacharit. I was thrilled when he suggested that. I had been secretly hoping that he would, and we waited for the cycle to finish Yevamot, and then we dived right in at Masechet Ketubot back in February 2015. And for all these years since then, Rav Mel presided over the Daf Yomi table with a cup of hot black coffee, a few tea biscuits, and his wit, and his insights, and his memories from yeshiva decades ago. Again, he made sure that everyone felt comfortable at the Daf Yomi table, whether you had a yeshiva education or had never studied Gemara before. Everyone could ask questions, everyone could share an opinion, everyone would have his or her grammar corrected. If I said, can I pour you a cup of coffee? No, pour a cup of coffee for you. On Friday afternoon, I shared news of Rav Mel's death with a number of Anshe Shalom alumni, men and women who had lived in Lakeview for several years or more and had since moved to elsewhere. I wasn't sure that they still read shul emails. I knew they would want to know, and there is a circle of grief, which is a circle of love that extends to Israel and to Europe and from New York to California and everywhere in between. Everyone who passed through our shul for any length of time was influenced in profound and positive ways by Rav Mel, and none of us will forget him. In just a few days, we're going to declare before Kol Nidre, Yeshiva Shel Maila, Yeshiva Shel Mata. The heavenly court and the earthly court both declare we can gather and pray together with those who aren't perfect, with the sinners, and the declaration suggests a connection between what those of us say down here, what rabbis and judges like your father say, and what happens up in the court above. And I feel with all the sadness, some amount of comfort that he's going to be in the Yeshiva Shalmala this Yom Kippur. He's going to be advocating for all of us and looking out for all of us as we face that day in just a few days. And thank you.
Most of the pages are blank. This is a sad day for each of us. My father cherished people and accepted their imperfection. He connected with people easily, and he was never fussy. He is delighted, he's honored by each of you, each person here, each person who Zoomed, each person that he knew, and he thanks each of you. My father was my rock. My earliest memory was as a very, very young boy. After a nightmare, I was screaming for my mommy, and my father appeared in the doorway. And that night, he slept on the floor next to me. And I knew whatever monsters there were could not attack under his protection. My father was always there. He was there for my mother, for my sister. My father was there for my children, for Amy. If my children needed a school pickup or an extra holding or loving attention, he was always there. The events of stories are way too many, and we have Shiva to get through maybe in 7 days. All that he had done for him, his friends, doctor's appointments, and other forms of help. He was a really reassuring person to be near. He was a reassuring father, he was a reassuring grandfather, he was a reassuring friend. He was warm, he was reliable, enduring, and pleasant. After marrying, my father was decided he was going to stop his yeshiva learning in order to provide for his family. My mother recognized that he was, I think, less than a year from getting smicha and insisted that he finish that last year. His smicha, in those days, the smichas at Beis Medrash Torah, before it moved to Skokie, long before it moved to Skokie, was customized for each student. It was a form of recommendation, and in his smicha read, Hinei harab hamufla hana'ala hamuflag v'shinun mishnah kav v'naki ish chamudot mukhtar b'nimusim midot turomiot bar avhan bar aritz. I think the key piece here, Moreno Rab Moshe Arye ben Yaakov Mir, Bershus, my father. What was central for him in this piece that really seemed to have captured, I mean, I guess they saw him learning from the age of 16 to early 20s, mid-20s, was this concept of kav v'naki, which means measured and immaculate. And that was really a touchstone of his life. It's based on a Gemara in Gittin, which reviews the attributes of many of the Talmudic sages, or Mishnaic sages, actually. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is called Kavu Naki, measured and immaculate. His learning is called measured and immaculate. He himself is not called it. It's his learning. This attribute actually has halachic consequences that his teachings are considered, when there are teachings of his, they are considered default authoritative. And where they come in conflict and actually do not end up in halacha, they have to have an explicit explanation why this is not so. And you see that in Yevamot 60a, Brachot 23b, Rosh, and in the Rosh in Bava Basra 721 also discusses this issue. He was kav v'naki, measured and immaculate. Regarding halacha, he followed his mentors and his lineage of teachers, with really the Shulchan Aruch as being central, and was a very skeptical of chumrah. He greeted chumrah with skepticism because of hidden unintentional consequences. Regarding personal life, he was moderate, and he spoke and wrote with care and intention. He gave guidance to many who engaged him with personal interventions, often with very few words. Regarding communal life, he was sought out and recruited in moments of extreme crisis for it, Beit Medrash the Torah, Anshe Shalom B'nai Yisrael, Akiba Schechter in Akiba, before it came Akiba Schechter, and he dealt with these difficult situations beautifully. In business, he was careful and restrained, looking to provide for his family, and he explicitly told me that he did not invest in ventures that he could not understand or seemed too good to be true or in some manner potentially dishonest. He passed up many opportunities, and some of them turned out to be in fact legitimate. Many of them I think were legitimate, but he did not mind his friends. He didn't feel that he missed something. He was happy his friends made money on these deals that he passed up, and there was never a kind of envy. Kavanaki, he was truly moderate, but in no way fearful of action. It was not a moderation of fear, or a restraint from fear. Sorry about that. In fact, one of my favorite quotes that all my surgical students know, all my doctor students know, that life includes making mistakes, but not to make the same mistake over and over again. And I personally had this enormous gap in my universe. I am forever grateful and happy to acknowledge this sadness, this loss. And I think that for me, Avot Bimkom she'ein ish tishtadel liot ish, where there is no leader, where there is no outstanding person, attempt to be that person. So before I sit down, I want to thank my wife who has been speaking for me and helping me, and those people close to me, Sarah, Gabriel, Ben, Claudia, and my sister Susan, who have been providing comfort to me and my father, and to the compassionate doctors and nurses, to Susan Liss and Kathy Gluck, and the chaplains. They've all been wonderful, and I thank all of you for your support and love. And my father, he does too.
I am fortunate that my father lived until 95 years of age, but I will miss him greatly. My father was an unusually good man, although he would not have thought he was unusual. He had a democratic character, open to others, kind and considerate. Status did not interest him. He followed his own sense of what was right, informed, of course, by both Halachic Judaism and American democracy. Everyone should have a voice. Everyone should be respected. If you can give a helping hand, do it. Make sure a good education is available to everyone. And the list goes on. When I think about the many things I could say today about his life, one consistently comes to the fore. My father, and importantly my mother too, lived out their values every day in matters both small and great. In his everyday life, my father was a mensch to everyone he met. This menschlichkeit spilled over onto a much larger canvas. When South Shore became integrated, my father was determined that Jews should stay and not flee. He sought to strengthen the shul and our school as other community members moved north. My parents saw the cause of civil rights as a fundamental expression of Jewish and specifically religious values. All people are created b'tzelem Elokim and should be treated with equal respect. When the community sadly could no longer sustain the shul or the school, he had been instrumental in building, my father made it his goal to save the school, and so it became a kibbutz Schechter, now located in Hyde Park. On a much smaller scale, I have many other memories, many to do with father-daughter relationships. I recall, for example, that my father had the patience to read, and I have to say it grammatically correctly, not read me, but read 2 favorite storybooks to me every night before bed, Peter Pan and the 12 Dancing Princesses. He also took me to ice skating lessons every Sunday, even though he didn't know how to skate. And remarkably, when every week I lost just one glove of a pair, and I still do not know how I managed to do this, he bought me a new pair every week and never told my mother. It turns out, as in many cases in our lives, there's an intergenerational echo here. Judy, my first cousin, probably knows what I'm about to say. So when my father was a young man, a boy, he was wearing his Shabbos pants because it was Shabbos, and he climbed over a fence and he ripped his pants. And his father, instead of scolding him, and instead especially of telling his mother, which would have been the worst thing possible, made sure, not on Shabbat, but later, that the pants were mended, and that in fact his mother never knew that he had torn them in the first place. So there's an echo from generation to generation. For the last number of years, I called my father every morning and every night to start and end each day, wishing each other the best. This valuable practice, unfortunately, can no longer continue. I could tell you so many more stories, and you could, I am sure, in turn, tell me many others. But during these pandemic days, during which we must speak at and stand by the kever, I must be brief. There will, however, be a Zoom Shiva, and Michael and I and Amy and Sarah and Gabe, Ben and Claudia would very much like to hear from you all.
At this point, we're going to lower the casket to the bottom of the grave, and mourners will have a chance to tear Kriya, and we'll say Ramalei Rachamim and fill in the grave.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a couple of moments, the cemetery workers will place their bald cover onto the grave. For those who want to participate in the burial, may do so. There are gloves here. It's a requirement to wear the gloves while we touch the cemetery equipment, the shovels, and then we'll take them back to some garbage cans that you can throw it away. At the conclusion of the interment, the family will be sitting Shiva. This is by appointment only, and there's Amy's phone number to call. And there's also a public Zoom Shiva, and that information is on our website, ChicagoJewishFunerals.com, and you can go on there and you'll see the times for the Zoom Shiva. So again, once the cemetery workers place the cover of the vault on, for those who want to participate in the burial, there's some 2 boxes of gloves there. We'll walk around and hand them out. Please put them on and try to be as social distance as possible. And then once you finish shoveling, we'll throw away the gloves. Except for Kimmel. Again, for those, everybody has, okay.
Following the memorial prayer, everyone is invited to participate in this chesed shel emet, this ultimate mitzvah, this ultimate kindness of caring for somebody who can never repay that kindness to us. And all of us here had a lot of love for Mel, and this is the last thing he needs from us at this point. And it's a great privilege to take part. As was said, there are gloves, so put the gloves on and shovel. The custom is that the first shovel full of dirt we put into the grave, we use the back of the shovel to indicate this isn't a normal task we're engaged in. This is something we're very reluctant to do, even as we're very honored to be able to participate in this mitzvah. Once you've done a shovel full with the back of the shovel, then you can shovel conventionally as we fill in the grave. There's another custom as well, not to hand the shovel directly to somebody else, because this is a task we engage in with great reluctance. So instead we stick the shovel in the dirt and let the next person pick up the shovel in their own gloved hands. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, amsei menucha nechona, confess shechina, b'melo kedoshim etaharim, kazorakia mazirim, nishmat min harav, Moshe Arye ben Yaakov meshalach liolamo, bavo shanachnu mitpalim ba'ad haskarat nishmato, b'gan yedzei menuchato, lochein bal rachamim, Yasti rehu beseter kanafav liolamim v'yitzro b'tzarchim nishmato Adonai hu nachlato v'nu achvishal mishkavo v'nomar Amen.
Remember you should turn my down? Yes. Oh, it's all good.
it up. We'll throw it in. Push it up a little bit. Sit back. They're going to help us move the dirt closer, and then we'll finish up ourselves. What? There's still more people that haven't shown yet. I don't have any. Okay, so the third gets to go each side. You've shoveled? I have. Okay. Just might want to try to make it look a little nicer, just like a mound in the middle of the little. So Akiva is insane. It's face to face. They're going every day. There's like a health screening every morning. And CPS is all remote all the time. So he's to the point where everyone's commuting. So Debbie commutes from our bedroom to the guest room. And Debbie commutes from his bedroom to the third floor. And that commutes from his bedroom to Debbie to my bedroom. Whatever drives them to the office block. And I've been in. So we're doing something in the basement today. He's supposed to be village and have fun on set. So I got an office in the basement. So it's yeah, so this can be a good one on then put it from John. This is for we have to visualize here on our broadband. That's what I'm yeah. It's like $9 less. We're not even doing
In a couple of moments, we're going to be reciting the Kaddish, and after Kaddish, we'll form a shura, an aisleway leading away from the grave. For friends and extended family, we'll line up an aisleway away from the grave, and then the immediate mourners will walk through, and we could offer them traditional words of condolences. And again, this will be done after the mourners Kaddish.
I'm not going to go back in.
Yiskadav Yiskadash Shemei Rabbah Yomad Divra Hu Atid Li'it Hadata Li'it La'achaya Meitaya La'asaka L'chaya Alma L'mivnei Karta D'Yerushalayim L'shachlel Hechle Begavai L'mekad Mekar Balchana Nuchra'am Ma'arba Ma'ara L'atava Pulchana Dishmayad Atre Bimlach Kucha Richu Bimalchute Bikore Chayechon Miechon Mechay Dechol Beis Yisrael Bagala Vizman Kari Vimru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Leolam U'Me'amayab Yisbarach Yishtabach Yispa'ar Yisromam Yisnaseh Vis Hadar, Vis Alev, Vis Alal, Shmei Kusha, Brichu, Leila Min Kol, Leila Min Kol, Berchasa, Beshirasa, Tush Bechasa, Benechamasa, Daryan Be'alma, Yimru Amen, Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, Chaim, Aleinu Ba'kol Yisrael, Vimru Amen, Oseh, Shalom Bimramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ba'kol Yisrael, Vimru Amen.
Again, if we can form a shura leading away from the grave, then the immediate mourners will walk through.
At this point, we transition from our burial and concern for the deceased to caring for the mourners, embracing them in our love and attention. And the shura is the first moment of that consolation.